Oh, jeez. That's what happens when you have a little janky filming setup here. But what's going on? This is a great day 2 of the college basketball season. I don't know if you guys are matching my excitement for college basketball this early on, but it's always just such a fun sport. Week 1, first couple games, before you hit conference play really is kind of a crapshoot. Yesterday, there were a ton of blowout games. As you kind of imagine, it's those schools where you have no idea what they are, you never heard of them until they hop on the basketball schedule. Like Lehigh, Quinnipiac, Fairleigh Dickinson. I'll only remember that because as a Purdue alum, that was probably one of the most heartbreaking basketball games, having Purdue lose as a number 1 seed. So Fairleigh Dickinson is always on my mind. But there were a couple of really good closer games, which I was surprised about. And then, of course, the marquee one I talked about earlier, that being Florida and Arizona. So, to be fair, I was probably going back and forth between Florida, Arizona, and then Monday Night Football, which, of course, was Arizona Cardinals beating the Dallas Cowboys. Kind of a pretty good night for Arizona, in all honesty, because Arizona, the 2.5-point underdog, wins outright 93-87 against the Florida Gators. And while I was catching both games kind of back and forth, I have to say, what I was guessing about Arizona looked pretty accurate in that game. That Arizona squad has some real punch. And those younger players in particular, Pete, I didn't realize how ballin' this kid would be, but he plays 36 minutes, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Like, what a debut for a freshman. I might have said rookie earlier, but freshman, rookie, similar thing. The kid was insane in game 1 freshman year against the defending champs. And I kind of had a feeling this might be the case. Arizona was a little bit more put together than Florida. Florida looked sloppy, to say the least. It looked like a team that was either on the championship hangover or just not 100% there. And again, a lot of new faces at the program. You lost a lot of talent. Boogie Fland was okay. 32 minutes, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 33% from the field. Not exactly what you would expect, or at least not what you would hope for. Again, top 25 recruit coming into a second season, you'd imagine fully healthy, and it left a lot to be desired. Now, kind of what I thought would happen, the carryover from last season paid dividends. In particular, Thomas Howe, 27 points, solid rebounding, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, a block. Pretty good from a more veteran player. And then another guy, Alex Condon, 11 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Kind of what you would expect from those two players. Ruben Shinyelu, just okay, but he was, again, more of a role player last year anyways. Florida was definitely a team that needs time to gel. They have talent. They have pieces. It's probably going to take until conference play for them to really start to gel together, which is not surprising when you have a lot of teams who lose talent to graduation, to the pros, or nowadays to transferring. And it seems like Arizona has almost kind of improved upon last year. Granted, it's only week 1, only game 1. But when you beat the defending champs, the number 3 ranked team, that's showing some real toughness. Jaden Bradley, 36 minutes, 27 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 rebounds. They have some really key contributors on Arizona. Now, is that to say they're going to just run away with the Big 12? No, probably not. They still have to compete with the likes of Houston, BYU, who we'll get to in a little bit, Kansas, other competitive teams in the Big 12. But I don't see a reason why Arizona wouldn't be in the mix for the conference championship. I would not be surprised. If they're going to look like that, if they're going to dominate like that, if they are going to be way better from free throws, from efficiency, from three-pointers, yeah, it's going to go way better. That was a notable thing too, actually. Just double checking here. They were 2 for 5 from three-pointers. They did not shoot from downtown. Is that just a product of who they were playing? It could be. It could be because they thought they could beat Florida in the paint, and it seemed to work pretty effectively. Do they have that second gear, though? Do they have that three-point gear to match people in other shootouts? Yeah, this was a shootout here, 93-87, but is that three-pointer going to be reliable? We'll see how it all separates. Florida, 7 for 27, 25.9%. That is not going to win you games. Understandable. Anything under that, like 33%, is pretty rough. Now, again, could this just be the rust? It could be. They had to travel across country. They had to go from Gainesville to Las Vegas. It was a de facto away game. And again, they're trying to mesh on a team with a lot of new pieces. Of course it's going to be a little tough. Of course it's not easy. So it'll be interesting to see how Florida bounces back. Arizona, awesome win. I really hope they aren't overlapping on Monday night too much more, because Monday Night Football, I mean, NFL is still king. So a couple of closer games that I did not expect. This one was shocking-ish. Was Auburn and one of the schools that you never hear about until basketball season starts, Bethune-Cookman. Couldn't tell you where that is. But Auburn kind of survives in overtime against Bethune-Cookman. Not exactly what you would expect from a team that was just in the Final Four. But much like Florida, Auburn lost a lot of talent and, of course, Coach Bruce Pearl. Now, his son Steven taking over the program, we'll see if that youthful energy adds a real boost. But if you're a ranked team, if you were just in the Final Four, there's no reason you should be going to overtime against, with all due respect, Bethune-Cookman. As the 20th ranked team preseason, you still don't have any business playing like that. And again, we're shaking off the rust. It's game one. It's effectively a preseason type of play. But that's not exactly what you would hope to see from this squad. And not a whole lot of returning production. Todd Pettiford was probably the most notable name that came back from this Final Four squad. But last year, they were ranked pretty darn high. It's just going to be an interesting experiment for Auburn, because there's not a whole lot of room for error in their conference. Not when you have, again, Florida did lose, but they're still a top program right now. Elite coaching. They have really good players. When you have the likes of Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas has really stormed out with Calipari and a lot of talented pieces. Alabama has a lot of turnover, but they are still liable to put up 90 points against damn near anybody. Tennessee, tough team. As Auburn, you don't have the luxury of that type of performance. Not if you want to be competitive in the conference. Now, there were some key bright spots. You really would hope them to turn it around and actually like blow out one of these smaller schools by like a good 30-ish points. They're probably going to have some tough conversations in the meeting room with Stephen Pearl. I'm sure he's going to be talking to Dad, Bruce, about how to sort of rally this squad. This is kind of a rough situation to be having turnover at coaching and roster. Now, granted, a lot of guys, went to such great spots. But it's going to be an interesting progress for Auburn. Now, another interesting one that was closer than I expected was UCLA. Coming in at the number 12th ranked team, and in particular, I knew that I had an interesting feeling about them because they got Donovan Dent out of New Mexico. Great starting piece. He had a pretty good day, 21 points, 36 minutes, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal. Pretty good. That was a lot closer than expected. Now and again, it's really hard to judge week one. It's really hard to judge game one. But when you have that kind of talent, when you have Mick Cronin, when you have that type of home environment at UCLA, at least when UCLA is good, that's, again, a lot closer than you would expect. Now, welcome to living in Chicago. From downtown, baby. There we go. But when you're the 12th ranked team, when you're UCLA, when you're at home, and you're hosting Eastern Washington, you probably don't expect it to be that close. And Eastern Washington had things tied up with 8 minutes to go in the second half. Now, I don't want to cast too much judgment. That's just a lot closer than I would have expected. And when you see a lot of other ranked programs starting to blow teams out at home, that's kind of that typical week one progression, you can't help but wonder of is it just winter rust? Is it trying to gel to a new team, new system, new teammates? You can't help but wonder what the deal is. And I thought about that earlier related to Donovan Dent, just because great player at New Mexico for 2 years, transfers to UCLA. From the game yesterday at Florida, Xavier Lee coming from Princeton. How many smaller school transfers to larger programs we're starting to see? It doesn't spell great things for the mid-major, for our Cinderellas, which it's really hard to predict, of course. But with sort of the very transient nature of college athletics, with how players are transferring all the time, with how they're getting money out of the transfer portal all the time now, you can't help but wonder if this is really going to just, similar to college football, concentrate the talent at a fair amount of larger programs, but more or less eliminate mid-majors and smaller programs from being actually competitive. Or if it's going to end up being the case where they're almost like a feeding program into larger schools. And that would be my oven. I'll be right back. Cool, we're back. So it does make things very interesting when it comes to looking at the Cinderella type stories and how much more rare those might become. I mean, just take a look at last year's March Madness, how the Final Four was all 4 number 1 seeds. How many more times will we start to see 11 seeds, 10 seeds, 12 or more make a run super deep? It's hard to say. And I hope that's not necessarily the case, because honestly, I think that's one of the really fun parts about March Madness, the upsets. It is not knowing what could happen on any given game. That you could get a small program from Lord knows where in the country, and you could have a close game to the very end. I remember a couple of years ago, when I was teaching in particular, we had parent-teacher conferences, and this was again in like mid-March. So I had a particularly free window during parent-teacher conferences. And granted, on a school computer, maybe IT saw, I really don't know. But I had time. So I pop open a less than credible streaming site, and I streamed Furman versus Virginia. It was number 3 Virginia versus 14 Furman. And that was such an exciting game. No idea where Furman College, University, I don't know. No clue where it is. Maybe that's on me. But it was such a thrilling game to the very end. I want to say it was a 1-point game, and it came to the last possession. I love that kind of stuff. It is so fun to have that thrill. I mean, one of the cool things about college sports is seeing how the crowds just go ballistic. That's so much fun. And we're always going to get it to some degree, but I hope we do get to see some Cinderellas. It's just difficult because we have, again, a very fluid nature of rosters. How if you're a good player at a small program, unless you're extremely loyal, there's a very strong chance that a big program is going to chuck money at you to come play for them. You're going to get huge payouts from a Duke, a Kansas, an Alabama, a Florida, an Arizona. Like, I hope it's not necessarily the case and that we still get our Cinderellas here and there. It's just really hard to foresee that with this concentration at the top. And time will tell. We have a lot of basketball games to watch. We have a lot of madness to unfold. And I'm here for it. I'm here for every moment of it. I love it. Especially, granted, now we have football, NFL, and college. So once we in particular get to February, Super Bowl's done, that's when the college stuff is really going to ramp up. But at this point, figure might as well talk a little Monday Night Football since that probably occupied most of my attention last night. Arizona Cardinals, Dallas Cowboys. And the Cardinals, without mincing words, they just worked the Cowboys. Worked them pretty bad, too. And with a backup quarterback down to their third-string running back, actually, this is a practice squad running back. I know Bam Knight wasn't even the number 3 coming in. The number 3 actually got sent to the practice squad, and they brought up Bam Knight, Eddie DeMercado. I don't think Michael Carter even took a snap. But that's a wild outcome, and not an expected one. I want to say most people following the NFL probably would have guessed the Cowboys were going to throw it all over the yard, put up at least 30 points, and Arizona would have to play catch-up. That's what I thought too. But the fact that the Arizona Cardinals stormed out of the gate against the Cowboys, they did not give up an offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter, is wild. And with a backup quarterback, with a pretty depleted running back room, and they just got worked. That's a tough one for Cowboy fans, especially with the way that offense has been producing. Now, to be fair, Arizona, I think, is better than their record would suggest. They have been in a lot of close games, they just happen not to win. In the last 2 weeks, they were a big underdog to the Colts. They lost on the road by 4. They were a big underdog against Green Bay. They lost by 4. It was a really weird implosion against the Titans that realistically only the Cardinals could pull off. They've had some quirky games. Seattle, that one was a very close game in prime time. Arizona is better than their record would suggest. It's just a matter of how good could they really be. Is Jacoby Brissett really an upgrade over Kyler Murray in the passing game? It kind of looks like it. They've been actually pretty competitive. They've actually been throwing the ball better with Jacoby Brissett. It's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out. because Arizona's been feisty. They really haven't won much under Jonathan Gannon, but they're feisty. Dallas, I don't know how to explain that. The fact that a backup quarterback carved up that defense, it shouldn't be a surprise considering how their defense has been all year, but that was just bad. That was just bad. And the offense putting up 10 offensive points is pretty startling. Now, of course, they got their stats. That's garbage time stats. Dak throws for 250 yards. CeeDee Lamb gets 85, I think. He had like over 80 yards. A lot of garbage time production. George Pickens started to get some of his due, but at the end of the day, when you were down by that much point, they were down by 17. It's wild. I don't know how Dallas comes back from it. They have a lot of injuries. I didn't realize how injured their secondary actually was, but they're missing a lot of key pieces in the secondary. And it's just really hard to say how they go from here. Would it be better for Dallas to just mail it in, tank it, and just try for better draft picks? How else are you going to fix that defense? And it's wild giving away Micah Parsons at the time that they did. I guess if it were closer to the draft, might be more understandable. Because if it were closer to the draft, it were before the draft, they could have addressed that pass rush need with all those picks. They could have addressed linebacker, secondary, DT, D-end. But it was very peculiar timing. Maybe that was Jerry Jones trying to just drum up enthusiasm. I don't know. Maybe that was Jerry trying to sell headlines. It's hard to say. But what we do know is that Dallas is probably top 2 worst defenses along with Cincinnati. And if you're up there with Cincinnati, 2025 Cincinnati Bengals defense, that's pretty bad company. So when in doubt, for the rest of the year in fantasy, in gambling, pick against the Cowboys defense. Pick the props against the Cowboys defense. Pick the opposing fantasy players against Dallas. That's going to be your go-to move. Because it does not seem like things are going to get better anytime soon. And when you have big contracts tied up with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, some of your offensive linemen, it's really, really hard to see where they go from here. Those draft picks they got from Green Bay, they better hope that they turn into something. Because Kenny Clark really hasn't been doing much on the Dallas defense. They better hope they hit home runs with those 2 first-round picks. But that's enough doom and gloom. Good day for Arizona. Honestly, great day for Arizona. Wildcats, huge win. Cardinals, huge win. Interesting storylines around college football. Well, college football too. College basketball, the NFL. There's so much to get into. This is a great time to be talking sports. And if you made it this long, thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my sports takes. So if you made it this long, I appreciate you. Thanks.